Nation, also the chairman of Trademark East Africa and the former deputy chair of the African Union. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Today, of course, much on the plate that we have to discuss. We know that Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, they're having their second summit today, and that will be happening much later in the course of the day today. So they've already arrived in Hanoi, yes. And there's much expectation on what is going to be happening as far as that is concerned. Nigeria election also on the plate, and we have the youth who came out in force to actually, try and tilt the outcome of this general election in Nigeria. So we can see what we can discuss about the youthful disruption in Nigeria. How are they harnessing the power of the youth as well? I don't know what you think that maybe also has been happening, and I missed it as Irungu Yutun is just walking in and he's not aware that we are on air. We are on air.
Yes. Good morning to you.
Right, Dr. Khanenje.
Yeah, the Nigerian election has been very interesting, but one thing that was a little bit I was unsatisfied with is the turnout was extremely low, at around 33%.
33%?
Yes. So when you're having more than 70 million registered voters and only have 25 perhaps votes, I think it's not an extremely exciting day, especially for African democracy, and in part because in the previous election, actually the turnout was much higher. I think it was in the 40s, and now it's going down. So in a country, the largest, most populous country in Africa, almost 200 million people having less than 30 million vote, it does not speak very well on where we're going. Yes.
Okay, let's say from
the postponement by 1 week would have also affected it, and political bandits say that the lower the turnout, the higher the chances of President Buhari winning second term. So you don't know why this could have turned that way.
Right, well, I don't understand the mathematics there. Yeah.
Well, of course, that's very interesting, because if you look at the voting patterns, it was in such a way that where there was likelihood of the other candidate doing much better, things just couldn't work out. The ballot papers arrived late, the postponement discouraged people in that area, and
so do you think this was actually deliberate?
One never gets to know, because even postponing, you still didn't see any proper arrangements on the ground.
Okay.
They still started voting late. So what was the whole idea of postponement?
It doesn't make any lick of sense.
Yes.
Right. And of course also Brexit is on the table. Absolutely. And there is a new development with this which will give our viewers as well. First, there's the suggestion that they should extend the Brexit, Brexit delay.
Yes. And
we wonder this variable, how could it also change the whole equation as well? Dr. Irungu, not Dr. Irungu Yutun, but Irungu Yutun. Good morning. Yes, yeah. A honorary one this morning.
So first of all, let me just start by apologizing for walking on stage, particularly for the viewers who somehow do not see how we come onto the stage. I've just made this very transparent for viewers. Yes, we do walk on. So I think on the question of Brexit, I was in Europe 3 weeks ago, and speaking to the Germans and the Dutch, really they have been really baffled by the extent to which this process has really taken so long for either the UK to declare that it does not wish to proceed. But of course it's now very complicated. Many processes are now underway. If you have a ship on the seas, by the time you arrive in Europe, it will be there will be a different regime that will be at play in terms of trade rules. And I think for me, for the UK, and I will be traveling the next week, it will be interesting to see how much of the European spirit is still within the British people.
All right. And of course, we have Virunga Simiyu with us as well. And he's trying to put his ducks in a row. These are the fruits of coming late. Yes. When we say 6 on the nose, they should be here. 6 on the nose, right? But we'll be talking to Irunga much later in the course of the program. Guys, also, we'll be having in-house today. This is His Excellency, the Ambassador of Iran to Kenya. We know the story that has been on, especially on Sunday, which he came stoutly denying, saying that he was not really also consulted as far as the story was concerned. So this was a complete misinformation. And we're going to discuss issues to do with Iran, this particular development that we know is happening as far as ferrying some of Iranians who are purported to actually have aided and abetted terrorism, or who are actually planning to perpetrate acts of terrorism in the country. How will that pan out as well? And also the issue of Kenya and Iran tea export, because of what is happening in the US so far with the sanctions as well. That is also bound to affect us. Professor Noah Midamba, the Johnny Come Lately, is here. Good to see you. But we will also talk to Ambassador much later in the course of the program. So I look forward to actually discussing this with you and after that other issues as well. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. And we begin with the Daily Nation. This is what is on the fourth page of the Daily Nation. Ruto aide caught in dams scandal probe. And where did 21 billion shillings spent on phantom projects in Rift Valley go? That's their probing question. And it's all about corruption. The other players are here as well. You can see their faces. This is Mugo Kibati, Sanlam Group Limited, that he was actually previously. Right now, he's the CEO and the chairman of Telecom Kenya. He was the former CEO of Sanlam Group Limited. And we have Titus Naikuni, Heritage Insurance Limited. Also, we have Simon Nyachai, Containers Kenya Limited. These are the players. It says scheme. Some of the directors of the companies ordered to appear at DCI said they were asked to deliver materials that is not related to the construction of a dam to properties in Eldoret and Nairobi. One of the companies told us they delivered towels worth 20 million shillings, while another delivered tiles and carpets. We're asking them, how is this related to the construction of a dam? And they're not able to answer. DCI boss George Kinoti said this. Well, interesting. This particular dam, maybe, yeah, it can be carpeted. And of course, it has tiles as well. And interesting dams that we have in Kenya. You can follow this story inside the Daily Nation, where you have the full report on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And we can see here, this is Ken Osinde, is the Deputy President William Ruto's Chief of Staff. And this is where the headline is pointed to. Ruto aide caught in dam scandal probe. You can follow this story, the full revelation, on page 2 of the Daily Nation today. Also, Jumwa Dori to know their fate on Friday. Top ODM decision makers meet at the end of the week to determine whether or not to kick out rebel coast MPs. This is another story that you want to follow, also on page 5 of the Daily Nation. The Catholic cardinal who abused boys. This is Catholic and carnality. It has been also in the news. They had a conference with also the Pope, but you can follow this story also on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's see what the Standard is holding for us. Kickback probe. How 4 billion shillings cash was taken. Dam cash theft. Detectives who have already questioned the Cabinet Secretary now probing how 4 billion shillings of the 6.3 paid to Italian company before dam project started was wired back and quickly cashed at bank's branch in Nairobi's Westlands. This story continues on page 4 of the Standard. And also political arena, one-on-one meeting. Raila and Gideon in private talks. ODM leader meets with Baringo Senator Gideon Moi in a city hotel. Sources say they discuss various political economic challenges Kenyan face, especially corruption and plight of maize farmers. And what's cooking? The opposition leader and Raila Odinga, after holding talks that lasted 4 hours with KANU chairman Gideon Moi in Nairobi, is what the caption is reading here. You can follow the story inside the Standard as well. How? Maybe I can show you this illustration of how the money was paid out and brought back. This is related to what is headlined in the front page of the Standard this morning. We have this particular 6.3 billion shillings amount of money transferred to Milan in Italy from Kenya's treasury in Nairobi, and you can see it pointing to Milan. And that money, part of the 6.3 billion shillings, police estimate 4 billion shillings is moved to a bank in London. And also from London, 4 billion shillings amount of money transferred from London to a bank in Westlands, Nairobi, and later withdrawn. And that is a story. You have a full scoop on page 4 of the Standard this morning. The Star. Fake Uhuru lived flashy lifestyle. Defendants want to call President Kenyatta as witness in their case. Long shots there. Facing murder charge in Bungoma, accused of shooting Mombasa student in 2014. That story is tucked away on page 4 and 5 of the Star. You know about these faces who they've been using or they're imposters, and they're actually, their 40 days were numbered, and they've been caught. You can read their story inside the Star this morning. Also, man deported from U.S. hacks fiancé to death, it says. That is on page 3 of the Star. MP splitters Kenya Airways defends JKA takeover bid. MP splitters Kenya Airways defends JKA takeover bid. Mudavadi demands Kenyatta sacks CS linked to corruption. This is on Dam's probe. Yesterday, he actually wrote a press release, and that's the story that is tucked away on page 9 of the Star. Universities relax security checks, expose students. This is in the Coast, and that is on page 25 of the Star this morning. People Daily. Top land dealer pocketed 5.3 billion shillings in dam scam. Senior politicians bought bushland for 1 billion shillings and within 60 days struck deal to sell it to KVDA at 6.3 billion shillings in brazen raid of public coffers. Now, an unraveling plot that threatens to sink prominent tycoons who enjoy juicy state largesse. This story continues on page 6 of the Star this morning. Government is being forced to repay a loan whose money is in people's bedrooms. This is what Kinoti is saying. And also, Raila Gideon 4-hour handshake sets tongue wagging is on page 5 of the People Daily. Mr. Moneyberg's Henry Westwell, one of the 7 men in the dock for using president's name to con gullible traders, is another story that you want to follow also inside the People Daily. And Matiang'i guns shock. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i with Principal Secretary Karanja Kibiso and Firearms Licensing Board officials inspect some of the 30 high-caliber guns surrendered by a prominent personality at the police pavilion in South Sea, Nairobi yesterday. You can read this story also on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Business Daily. Up next, Mwalimu Sacco loses 2 billion shillings in Mirali Bank. Teachers face the risk of losing even more as lenders' capital goes negative. It says this is one of the biggest SACCOs in the country. Mwalimu National SACCO has socked in losses of more than 2 billion shillings from its 2015 acquisition of a majority stake in Equatorial Commercial Bank, in which business tycoon and founder Naushad Mirali had a controlling interest. This story continues on page 4. Remember, this is a guy also who has been conned by the people who are impersonating as President Uhuru Kenyatta. CBK pushes back MP's bid to relax cash deposits law. We'll give you gritty details of this. Central Bank of Kenya Governor Patrick Njoroge has pushed back at MP's plans to relax anti-money laundering laws, warning that the proposed amendments will frustrate the war on corruption and cut off Kenya's banking sector from the global financial system. This story also continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. You can see a related picture here. This is Governor Patrick Njoroge and Deputy Governor Sheila Bijiwe and Banking Supervision Department Director, this is Gerald Nyaoma, when they appeared before our parliamentary committee yesterday. And as I said, you can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Let me show you also what Taifa leo is holding for us. Rafiki au Taifa. Wakenya wamtaka rais kusimamisha kazi mawaziri waliotajwa kwenye kashfa za ufisadi. And this story continues on page 2 of the Taifa leo. Also maoni ya Wakenya kuhusu madai ya ufisadi katika baraza la mawaziri. This also are the reactions there. You can read inside Taifa Leo today. Let's see what we have across the border. Government in talks with EU on possible EPA pact. Mahiga confirms that talks on some technicalities are going on and that Parliament's approval will be sought once a consensus is reached. This story is on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. If you're waking up in Tanzania, also body finally buried after 9-month legal battle. This story also on page 2 of the Citizen. And what to expect from Trump-Kim summit, the second summit happening in Hanoi. They're already there. We'll give you also the details of this, and we're discussing also this on Standing on Guard. Cabs on milk imports boost local output by 47%. This story continues on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Swahili version of the Citizen. Actually, I didn't lift that for you today, so I beg your pardon for that. But we can cross over now to Uganda and see what the Daily Monitor is holding for us. Uganda passport cited in Venezuela exile saga. That's what we have as a splash here. Reports indicate that a top Venezuelan politician used a Ugandan passport to smuggle his son to China following a heightened political tension in South American country. This story is on page 6 of the Daily Monitor, happening in Uganda and back home. Uganda sends ex-M23 rebels back to DRC. We can see this happening here. This is a shot. Some of the former M23 Congolese fighters board a plane after being handed over to the DRC or DR Congo authorities at Entebbe Airport yesterday. The Uganda's ambassador for special duties international conference on the Great Lakes region, Mr. Robert Masolo, told Daily Monitor that more than 200 ex-combatants are still camped in Bihanga, Ibanda district. This is also on page 2 of the Daily Monitor. Also, we have for you the New Times. Kagame urges Nyamagabe residents to work towards self-reliance. This is another story that you want to follow inside the New Times in Rwanda. And it continues there. Rwanda, EU, MAL, new avenues of cooperation. That's another story on page 8 of the New Times in Rwanda. Right, I want to show you also the editorial cartoons that we have today briefly. What we have inside the People Daily. This is according to Stano today. And we have their projects, funds, unemployment, stalled projects. Cartels are walking away with monies. And Wanjiku, she's the one now who's suffering, pulling this dilapidated vehicle here, which are the stalled projects. Unemployment also is a big issue. Look at the roads. We have potholes all over. Yet we have the cartels, people who actually pilfering public coffers, walking away with wads of cash jutting out from this particular briefcases. That is what has been drawn by Stano, the Standard. Oliver Bashir there. You can see him being pinned down. The protest is still going on in South Sudan, not really South Sudan, but Sudan. And is this now where we can say that the handwriting is on the wall, right? This is what is happening so far as the Sudan protest is ongoing, and also a revelation of its court, which are retaliating and hitting back at the citizens in Sudan. Those are editorial cartoons today so far. I'll be able to show you much later what Victor and also Monene have drawn for us this morning as well. Right, let's get down to business and see what we have for you as the highlights. But you can, in the meantime, grab a copy of the Daily Nation and the Star, or whichever paper that really floats your boat for now. The highlights. MPs contest the daily cash limit rule. In Nigeria, Buhari supporters celebrate in Abuja after election win. And Kim Jong-un and Trump arrive in Hanoi for the second summit. Now, the National Assembly and the Central Bank of Kenya are embroiled in a push and pull over new regulations that limit the amounts to be withdrawn from one's account. In Parliament, or that was happening in Parliament, the CBK argues the passage of amendments to the Banking Act gave them express authority of coming up with the new regulations, but Parliament argues that the regulations should be brought back to Parliament for processing into law.
In Kenya, we remain vulnerable to risks from money laundering and the financing of terrorism. By virtue of our location, we know how we are located, the geography, and the other, who are neighbors, and the oceans and things like that. Majority of suspicious transactions are generally triggered by unusually large cash transactions.
So, the moment, you curtail the circulation of cash, then you suffocate liquidity within even the banking sector.
Also, some 300 firearms and 5,000 rounds of ammunition have been confiscated in the ongoing vetting of firearms holders in the country. Interior CS Fred Matiang'i has warned those with illegal held guns to surrender them in the next 2 months or face prosecution. The government hopes to seal the corruption loopholes at the licensing board and have a fully automated register of civilians gun owners by April.
An assortment of rifles was on display at the pavilion at the CID training school Tuesday afternoon. Large guns ranging from semi-automatic, shotguns, hunting rifles and other sophisticated weapons, and over 5,000 rounds of ammunition. Their owners who held licenses for them were forced to give them up.
The law prescribes what class of firearms you can carry. Fortunately for you, today you have seen the kind of firearms that these good people have collected. Some of them are specialized firearms that under the law are only supposed to be carried by KDF.
300 firearms and 5,000 rounds of ammunition in the hands of unlicensed owners were confiscated. The CS has extended a 2-month grace period to anyone with illegal or unregistered firearms to surrender them or face prosecution.
The most interesting thing, as you have seen yourselves, is the number of guns that we are confiscating and the ammunition that has been confiscated, over 5,000 since this exercise started, of individuals who are holding firearm licenses that are fake or that were obtained fraudulently.
Since mid-December, 3,500 individuals have been vetted and have been given new licenses. Matiang'i says criminals had been taking advantage of the loopholes in the former licensing board.
We do not have a proper record of even the genuine firearm holders. That's why we are doing this. At the end of this exercise, when it's done, by the end of April, when we have done the whole country, we will have an electronic record.
The ministry will announce the dates when those living outside Nairobi should be vetted. Those within the capital have until the 7th of March to do so. Dealers in firearms and those who wish to drive armored vehicles are also required to get a license from the board. Records from the previous board show that about 9,000 Kenyans owned guns in this country. But with the revelation by the CS that quite a number of those documents were fake, the ministry now says it wants to clean up the sector to ensure that all guns in civilian hands are legitimate. Lina Mohammed, NTV, Nairobi.
Now, 2 key suspects in the murder of businesswoman Mary Wamboi's death will face charges next Monday. Judy Wangui, mistress to Mary Wamboi's husband, Joseph Corey, and car hire dealer Michael Gidai were arraigned at the Kiambu High Court, where they were expected to answer to charges of murdering businesswoman Mary Wamboi. The plea has, however, been pushed to next Monday because the late Wangui's lawyer, Cliff Ombeta, was not available. Mary Wamboi was killed in Wangui's house on the 26th of last month. A postmortem found that she had suffered 9 lethal blows to her head. Her body was found in a dam in Juja, Kiambu County. Judy Wangui remains the main suspect in the murder, with Michael Gidai believed to have helped her transport and dispose of the body using his taxi. Corey was released from police custody on the night of February the 21st after sources say investigations by homicide detectives at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations failed to link him to the murder. And female legislators are now calling on the leaders of government business in the National Assembly to rally Member of Parliament to pass the 2/3 gender bill when it is brought to the floor of the House for a vote today. A bill sponsored by a majority leader in the National Assembly seeks to lay out the modalities of meeting the constitution threshold by allowing parties to top up the numbers should the ballot box fail to balance the equation.
Young and old, and especially the women, are really looking forward to attaining this principle. As you know,
an executive bill, the leader of majority is the mover of government bills. The Constitution, Article 21, places the responsibility on the state.
We are all aware that he has been able to achieve much by mobilizing. Now that it's a government bill that has been brought by the government, and he's a majority leader and the leader of the government business.
Right. We want just to continue with the stories this morning, as also education Principal Secretary Bello Kipsang says all students will progress with textbooks they were issued with to the next class, and so there will not be any excess textbooks, he says. Kipsang, who appeared before the Education Committee, also said that up to today, 94% of the 2018 KCP graduates had reported to Form 1. He added that the Ministry of Education was working with schools to ensure they improve on infrastructure so that they could comfortably accommodate the increase in number of students. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Interior are working together to track students who are yet to report to secondary schools.
Now, on maintenance and improvement, and therefore our infrastructure money. You know, we've been giving 22,224 to our schools, and we all know in any resource that is given to institutions, they are both development and operation. For a very long time, we have given our schools monies which we had not defined how they would want to be used. And now we say 25% of that resource must be used on improving our schools. Improvement, in my opinion, maintenance is trying to do what is there. Improvement is trying to expand and do that which is necessary.
Now, many government agencies may not get the extra funding they asked for when they made their case before the National Assembly Budget and Appropriation Committee as the government signs limited resources. Chairman Kimani Ichung'wah says the agencies will have to find ways to operate within allocated budgets, and amid concerns that the funding shortfalls may affect their operations, more so for the institutions tasked with fighting graft.
You must understand that resources are always limited, but our needs are forever unlimited. So what we ask all MDAs in government is to be able to rationalize and be able to prioritize what are priorities within their working programs. You don't have to do everything within one financial year. Governance and law and justice sector is one of the sectors in this country that we have ensured that we have put enough, not really enough, adequate resources to be able to support the fight against corruption. The challenge is on particular agencies to be also to be able to rationalize their staffing needs, be able to know what areas do you need more staff and which people do you need to pay better than others to be able to retain good talent. So those are administrative challenges within MDAs, and they have to be able to deal with them.
Now let's buckle to some business where Rebecca Mbithi has been appointed to the position of Chief Executive Officer at Family Bank. That is replacing David Duku, who resigned in September 2018. Mbithi, who presently serves as Company Secretary and Director, faces the challenge of sustaining the bank on a profitable path, a position that was resumed in 2018 after the 1 billion shillings loss reported in the 12 months that ended in December 2017. Mbithi's appointment comes against a backdrop of consolidation in the banking sector as lenders look to cushion themselves against the adverse effects of the cap on lending rates. Family Bank reported a net profit of 188 million shillings in the 9 months ending September 2018. Rebecca Mbithi's appointment is subject to approval by the Central Bank of Kenya. Let's see what is happening on the international scene. We begin in Nigeria, where supporters of Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari celebrated at his party headquarters in Abuja after tallies showed he won a second term at the helm of Africa's largest economy and top oil producer. A tally by Reuters based on electoral. introduce most of them. But also joining us this morning is His Excellency, the Iranian ambassador to Kenya. This is Dr. Hadi Farajvand, who is joining us to tell us more about Kenya and the Iranian relationship, which so far has come to the fore, especially on Sunday, after there was an expose, or not really an expose, but a story on how they were saying that the Iranian terror suspects were being aided to actually escape the country. And we just want to put that into perspective so far, and how also the sanctions that is now ongoing between the US and Iran is adversely affecting also the Kenya tea export to Iran as well. So we'll be actually putting that into perspective. And of course also I'll give a handy opportunity to our panelists as well to pepper him with questions as well. But let's just begin from there, set the tone for this particular conversation. Good to have you this morning, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, right to it. First of all, you claim that this story that was running on Sunday, that is the Sunday Nation, was a misinformation, that you were not consulted in the first place?
Yes, unfortunately, in publishing that article, professionalism was not taken into account by Sunday Nation.
Yes.
If any newspaper, including Sunday Nation, wants to issue an article like that, which is very important effect on the even bilateral relation with Kenya and spoiling reputation of the embassy and mission and myself, they had to consult me, consult our embassy, and seek information and clarification. But it seems to me that those influenced people forced the nation to even mislead the Sunday Nation to publish that information without any prior information or clarification from us. The story was totally distorted story. This issue, firstly, and almost 2 weeks ago, I was reported by myself to the Ministry of Interior, and I informed them that there are some gunmen approaching the embassy, claiming they are talking on behalf of the Ministry of Interior, some other officials, which I don't want to name them here in this show. After I understood that they are wrong and they are conmen, I decided what I can do with this. I thought it's better to report this issue to the Ministry of Interior in order to keep these people not going anywhere, destroying the good names of these officials. In response to this gesture and act to be appreciated, the issue has been diluted to the media and totally in a wrong way. Actually, they approached the embassy with a very concrete information, which I believe 2 of them are senior officers in some organization or ministry, with very concrete information about these 2 prisoners, and claimed they have carried a message from Ministry of Interior to me that I have to get prepared because these 2 Iranian prisoners are going to be free in 2 days. And then they had every detail of the file. And even I told them, are you from Minister of Interior? He said, only me and Minister of Interior. And he emphasized that I shouldn't contact anybody. But the other day, when the second day when they came to me and named some officials and requested me to give money for those officials, I said, you are a conman. I immediately left the conversation and I told them tomorrow, it was Sunday, I told them tomorrow, Monday, I will report your case to the Ministry of Interior. They said, if you report to the Ministry of Interior, we spoil your name. But I didn't listen to their threatening. And the other day, I asked my PA to contact the Ministry of Interior and give him the detail. And I was the one that gave them, I gave the Ministry of Interior the name and telephone number of those people.
Okay, so when they told you that you should not contact anyone from the Ministry of Interior, did that really not raise, you know, some worries and questions about it?
Exactly.
Red flags.
Exactly. For two reasons. For one reason, I said they may have some instruction.
Yeah, but
because they gave me first the full detail of the case of these two prisoners, but at the later stage, next day when they insisted me not to contact anybody in the Ministry of Interior,
all right,
and they said only me and Ministry of Interior, and then again they said, okay, you know, Kenya, you know how the Kenya works, and okay, then you have to give something. I said, I'm not working with you anymore.
Right.
You are false.
Ambassador, as a matter of diplomacy, if actually the Ministry of Interior was to come to actually seek audience with you, I think maybe the first place or the first thing they will do is to maybe also seek, you know, an appointment with you with official letter from the Ministry of Interior.
Exactly.
You didn't get anything from
exactly. I told them why they do not inform us officially.
Oh, okay.
It was Saturday. They said tomorrow, Sunday, the day after tomorrow, Monday, they will call you to go to the ministry.
So this was an issue of extortion, do you think?
Yes, they actually their purpose was to bribe the embassy.
Okay, so how was the story?
Giving very detailed information.
How was the story misinformed or misrepresented by the Sunday Nation?
I don't know, but I believe that two of these people are very senior officers in either Ministry of Interior or in the Director of Criminal Investigation. Even one of them, when he came to the meeting, he came with the escort, police escort.
Okay. So I want you to just give me a clear picture. How was this misinformed by the Daily Nation? Because you quoted the Daily Nation saying, no, this was not the accurate story.
No, the Daily Nation, Sunday Nation, they said I was the one that approached them and want them to, I wanted to give them money to escape these two from prison. Actually, I'm not a simple man. Taking these two people is not like a bird in the cage, and then you open the cage and say, okay, fly back to your country. If you want to take them back, you have to take them with the commercial flight, which everything is clear, is open.
So the issue around the ticketing, that actually secured the tickets for them?
Exactly.
They said, the embassy?
Yes, exactly, because they said I have to prepare to take them immediately, and I thought if I want to book the ticket at the same day, the ticket will not be available. It's better to be on safe side to reserve a ticket. If 2% they are right, if by 2% they are right, it's better to book a ticket to be prepared. But when the other day they ask for money and they emphasize that they have not to contact anybody in the Ministry of Interior, I understood that they are not from the Ministry of Interior, and immediately I report the issue to the Ministry of Interior. And even if I didn't report to the Ministry of Interior anything, nothing happened in the media.
But this issue was actually ruled by the High Court and is now being escalated to the Supreme Court. But why would you go full steam ahead and secure tickets and yet they are to appear before the Supreme Court, the two suspects?
You know that these two have been set free by the High Court. And the Supreme Court is going to rule because the hearing was held and it is to be ruled. But these two, with giving a very detailed information about the file, I said why the Kenya doesn't wait for the Supreme Court to rule. They said no. They introduced some people. Another guy, he said, I am in the Power of Mercy Committee.
Yes.
And then the issue came to the Power of Mercy. And because this critical health situation that they have, they said it's better to set them free and not waiting for any legal proceeding. And I said, okay, maybe they are right by 2%. It's better to reserve the ticket because at the day that they are released, we will not find the empty places on the airliners. But immediately, in spite that they emphasized 100 times that I shouldn't contact anybody, because if I contact anybody, some other body will be involved and understand the story, and they disturb the whole process. but I didn't believe them. I immediately informed the issue to the Ministry of Interior. And this story came even 1 week after that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the question will be again, are you...
And I should tell you, all conversation with them have been recorded. I have the file of conversation, and I am not going to disclose this file of conversation because they are naming very highly prominent authorities in Kenya, and they are claiming and giving information how they are connected to those officials. And in the time that we had conversation, one of them called one officials in this organization and talked to him.
All right, but have you reported this matter to the police? Any authority?
I didn't.
So
I didn't report to
Why
police. I only police. I reported to the, because they claimed that they are from Ministry of Interior. I asked my PA to call the Ministry of Interior and seek whether these people are from Ministry of Interior. They said Ministry of Interior said no. And then even the Ministry of Interior, the PA to the minister, request us to cooperate with police in order to get them.
Of which you've not?
For 1 week, I was trying to get them in somewhere to have another meeting and then inform the Ministry of Interior to come to and get them, but they refused. At the end, I told the Ministry of Interior that I made all efforts to take them either to embassy or somewhere outside the embassy to have a meeting to inform you. This was a plan between us. And you come and capture them, but they refused. It seems that they are scared. And therefore, the only thing that I have is the name and telephone number. And I give it to the Ministry of Interior.
Name and telephone number. I wonder for them to get access to the embassy. I think there's state security. You have the documents, you have their passports, you have their IDs. Do you have that so far? Or how did they just come to your office?
No, actually one of them, I don't know for what reason, he came to the embassy around 1 year ago. And then I knew him.
The question is, forget about the 4 years ago. They came to the embassy?
Yes.
How do they access the embassy without any documentation? Do they have the IDs, their passport numbers, any document that actually...
In the embassy, we do not check, it's not our procedure. If anybody wants to come to the embassy, we check the ID and passport. Even today, if somebody comes to the embassy, we do not check the ID and passport.
You do not check?
No.
So any Tom, Dick and Harry can just walk into the embassy?
Exactly.
Really?
Because if he wants to come to the embassy, he has to make an appointment. If he makes an appointment, then the name is given to the front door, and the front door, it is checked in the front door by a lady.
So did they make an appointment? That's the question I asked you.
One of them made an appointment that wants to see me. Then he said wants to see me for a very important issue.
But for your own security, don't you think these people, they need any documentation? Even if a person who's a psychopath calls you up and says he wants an appointment, do you just let them free and come to your office?
No, for instance, if I know somebody, it means I know him before. And as I told you, that one of these guys,
appeared before.
Okay. He called me because I knew him, and I said to the front door, if the guy in the name of X or Y comes to the embassy, let him in. And he came and said he has very important information, and I have to see somebody. I said, who? He said, he's a PA to Interior Minister. I said, okay, he can come to the embassy. He said, no, because if he comes to the embassy, all camera, everything, see him, because then he requests me to go to meet him outside, somewhere outside. And then this was the first meeting. The second meeting, he introduced another body. In the second meeting, they requested money, all these things, and I left them the session.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to also throw this over to our panelists before we take a short break. Just listening to what His Excellency is telling us, and this has actually thrown a spanner in the works as far as our relations is concerned with Iran. And this story, of course, the background is all about the two terrorist suspects that were being held by the government, who are trying to, to just perpetrate the evil. But the government actually, or the police really came to the fore and tried and forestalled that. So I don't know if you have questions for His Excellency, listening to his story from a diplomatic standpoint. Maybe we can begin with you, Erastus Mwenche. Just tell us, do you follow this story?
Yes, Debarl, I've followed the story through the media, and I've also followed the conversation with the ambassador. And I find a little missing link here, Your Excellency. For instance, you have not mentioned the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, one word, and yet this should be your interlocutor in any conversation that goes on with the government of Kenya. Why is that omission in your conversation? And the other thing, why would you go ahead and start buying a ticket for people that, you know, even if they're being cleared? Why these individuals? Are these individuals government officers? The two suspects? Who are they?
For the first issue, why I didn't inform the Minister of Foreign Affairs, actually, I must say that even informing the Ministry of Interior was not in an official way. For me, it was very simple story. 2 or 3 people which had access to some detailed information on the file, they just get together and draw a plan misleading me in order to pay them. That was very simple. And I said it's not a big issue. And I asked my secretary, just tell them first check with the Ministry of Interior, because they claim they are from Ministry of Interior, and they said for the security of these 2 personnel, they decided to approach me in this way. And I said it's better to consult the Ministry of Interior, because they say they are from Ministry of Interior. With my PA consulted the PA of the Ministry of Interior and said, do you know these people? Approached the embassy telling, they said no, they are false. And then they said, okay, this is the guy, I believe that they are damaging reputation and good names of officials in Kenya. I feel responsibility to tell you to help them.
Thank you.
And then they said, okay, give us the information, that's all. When this issue came to the media, it became a big issue.
Right, we need to take a short break right now. When we come back, of course, we continue with the questionings as well with Ambassador Farad. That is Hadi Farajvand. So we continue with this conversation on the other side of a break as well. How does it portend also for our relations between Iran and Kenya? And where will that really also cascade as far as the tea export is concerned? Not really on this particular story, but also on the US sanctions as well. That and much more on the other side of a break. Don't go away. Dr. Hadi Farajvand, and also do have our regular panelists with us. I'm holding court this morning with Professor Noah Midamba, who is a Vice Chancellor of KC University and also an expert on foreign policy and diplomacy. Also, we do have Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is the chairperson of the Africa Capacity Building Foundation, also the chairperson of Trademark East Africa, and the former deputy chair of AU. We have also the executive director of Amnesty International Kenya. This is Irungi Houghton, and also the director of Horn Institute. This is Dr. Hassan Khanenje, and also Dr. Werunga Simiyu, who is a security expert. We continue the conversation on this, and I think we left at Your Excellency answering or asking question regarding the foreign Ministry of Foreign Affairs being involved in all this saga. And the most consternating thing is that His Excellency did not make any contact with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as far as this is concerned. He thinks that this story was just, a sideshow story, that is not something so big. So,
no,
but it's turning out to be something as a menace for you.
Yeah, after it came out in the media, it became a big story because, like this story, I had 100 of these in my tenure in Kenya.
But why blame the media?
But
because
I never believed them, and I never took anything.
Your Excellency,
yes.
why blame the media, and you never took any initiative to actually clarify this? There was not even a press release to actually clarify that.
No.
So if the media misquoted, there was?
There was. Even in Sunday, we sent a press release to all media clarifying the situation for them, yes. Even on Sunday.
Even on Sunday.
Yes.
All right. Any other question from our
And
panelists?
Monday, I had the interview with several TV station, newspaper, and that interview has been reflected widely in Kenya as well.
Okay. Right. Ambassador, let's hear from Professor Noah Midamba.
Ambassador, your country is embroiled in conflict with the United States. You have a special relationship with Russia. There is a war in the Middle East that has existed for a long time, fighting with ISIS in Syria. We also know you have a major conflict with Saudi Arabia. I've been very impressed by the ingenuity, the hard work of Iranian people. I've had roommates in the US that are from Iran, hardworking, very focused people. But as a Kenyan, I'm really concerned about the specific role that is at play here. The question is, who are these people? Who are these two people who are in jail? And how do you assess the special relationship you have with Kenya? And are there other things that you anticipate that is going to come out that will spoil the good relationship that the two countries enjoy?
All right. Before you answer that, also let's hear from Irungi Houghton.
Maybe just to add on, Ambassador, you are governed by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, and one of those is to respect the law and the regulations of receiving states, of which you are currently with. You're under criminal investigation at the moment, based on the testimony both of the Anti-Terror Police Unit and also the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And my question to you, I guess there are two questions. One is, why these two individuals? I mean, we know that from the media that they are members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, or so-called Quds Force. Can you confirm that's the case? And then secondly, I guess the other question I have really is about the context in your country, which is really a repressive context for many Iranians. I mean, 7,000 people arrested last year, journalists, students, whistleblowers. The case less than a month ago of Yasha Soltani, as Amnesty, we've been very concerned about this person who essentially was a journalist and was arrested and convicted for 5 years of whistleblowing for corruption issues. I could give you many others, writers, women's rights activists, but I want you just to touch on that issue. At what point will Iran begin to become a democratic, open society that allows for democratic dissent as part of its nation building?
All right, let's take those two, and
yes, please.
We'll answer or take some more after you answer those two.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I must say that Iran is the biggest country that's been victimized by terrorism. And again, Iran is in the front line in fighting terrorism. Without Iranian support in Syria and Iraq, these two countries could not defeat terrorism. And you see that terrorism in these two countries in Iraq, totally they have been defeated, and Syria are just taking the last moment of their lives. I don't want to go back to who created that terrorism, because the story goes very back to the long in Afghanistan by establishing Al-Qaeda.
For the interest of time, yes.
Supporting by United States and some Arab countries, then from Al-Qaeda, then they changed, some part of Al-Qaeda changed to Daesh, ISIS, and they took part of Iraq and Syria. They clearly they have been supported logistically, politically, military by countries, even the United States. You can access some reports that they clearly confessed that the United States during war in Afghanistan helped Al-Qaeda to be strong. The issue of these two prisoners, I should say that they are not from any Iranian organization. They are, both of them are retired persons. I really doesn't have detailed information of the file, which this is this size. But the thing that we are doing is, as ambassador, as the Iranian, we do support every Iranian. Even yesterday, one Iranian have been captured at the airport that has presented a false passport. And immediately we contacted their family at the capital, and immediately we sent people to the court in order to release them immediately, pay penalty. Sometimes the court issue penalty, they don't have money with them. Even we pay in order to release them from the court and send them back to Iran. We, as an embassy, we do not go to the detail of any file. He is drug trafficker, he's been charged with terrorism, or he's been charged with the provision of false identity card or passport. In any case, we support them. We have one prisoner in Mombasa. He has been charged with drug trafficking. He has been there for several years. Every time that the court has a session, I send one interpreter from Nairobi to Mombasa for 1 hour to present in the court to assist him, to facilitate him.
All right, but
if this guy was in Iran, we put him in prison at least for his entire life.
All right.
But here we have to support our people. It's another issue. Right. With regard to the issue that you mentioned...
before you answer that, but the question would be, again, we have two suspects here. They've been actually in the slums for how many years now? Almost 2 years? Mm-hmm. And there's no due diligence from your end to actually get their background. You say that, is that the policy position of the consulate or the embassy, that you cannot dig deep and find that these are suspects?
No.
Then how do you defend these suspects
let me tell
as
you,
a country?
No, let me tell you, when we are inside the country, the story is something else. When we are outside the country, let me tell you, if an Iranian has been charged with drug trafficking of 5 kilograms of heroin in Kenya, you put him in 15 years jail, for instance. But if he has captured with that amount of heroin in Iran, he will be sentenced life in prison. Although you put him in 10 years in prison, in our country is sentenced as life in prison, but here we go to the court and present him, support him. It is our duty. We are like a doctor. We shouldn't say, okay, it is for drug trafficking or it's for terrorism. We have to give the consular service.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Hassan Kanenje and also Dr. Werunga.
Yeah. Now,
may I comment one just thing that our brother said, that 7,000 people have been arrested. You know, Iran is a totally democratic country, but we are at the end. We are progressing like Kenya. And we have 1,500 media published, daily, monthly, weekly. And if you look at the media, they do everything, they say everything about anybody. They criticize everybody inside the country. We have many parties that are freely have their newspaper. But last year there was some riot and protest, and the protest, some people protesting for their salary, to increase their salary, and some of them have been arrested. It doesn't mean 7,000 have been arrested and the 7,000 still they are in the prison. Some of them immediately released.
Just to follow up on this issue. I mean, I can give you names if you want, and anybody who's watching this show could actually just Google Iranian repression, and they will give you names of authors, writers, human rights activists, politicians, journalists, students. I mean, there's trade unionists. I mean, there's a whole number of people that are there, and they're very well documented. So it's not a case that these people don't exist. And I think it's not enough for somebody to say that the previous year there were X number of people and we're actually doing better on a ratio of 1 to 10. I think what my question to you was, at what point will you legitimately allow the right to expression, the right to association, and the right to organize in a manner in which you are not criminalizing democratic dissent? That was a simple question.
No, it's not the issue. Even yesterday, the day before yesterday, there was protest in Tehran. The people, actually, there is, even, as I told you, more than 1,500 or 600 media we have, and you see how many people are working in that.
Thank you.
And 2, 3 have been arrested. It doesn't mean in 3 cases the country doesn't have any free of expression.
Right, Dr. Asukaneja.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us on this show today to clarify a few things. Now, if this is in fact is true, well, part of it, it's extremely sad in part because we've been hearing lots of extortion stories, others impersonating the president and stuff like that. But my question is, and I wish we moved more to the nuclear deal and the future of it, it's more significant to the world. To what extent, because we understand the Court of Appeal released them then, there was, I think, a petition to halt them. And what I read in Nation and other places, they say, these gentlemen were held because they are members of the Revolutionary Guard. Now, there's a difference. Have we branded for them as a country, for instance, the Revolutionary Guard as terrorists? Okay, because if we haven't, then we really have no ground of holding them to start with. Now, if we have, then pretty much the entire, security apparatus, especially the military in Iran, any person coming from there will potentially be a terrorist. And I think that is an area we should clarify. Perhaps the ambassador knows some of the reasons why they're in, because for me, as far as I'm concerned, as a country, we're really not branded the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, and therefore that should not be grounds for them being in prison. But to what extent, based on the international climate that you've seen, pressure sometimes from some Western countries, especially the United States, and of course from Tel Aviv, could there be a foreign hand from your assessment, perhaps in the plight of some of your citizens?
Right. Before you answer that, also let's hear from Dr. Virunga.
No, I don't think I have a question, but I think I followed this story for many years, from 2012, and it's been a story that is loaded with a lot of, there's been talk of external hands in this, and I think it's been around for a long time. Of course, they were found with 15 kilograms of whatever, but there's been a lot of story around this issue, and that's why every time I think they're being released by any court, there's always an appeal to detain them. While I do not know how you operate as an embassy, I thought that although these people came from the Ministry of Interior or DCI or whatever, I thought as an embassy you should have gone to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I know they have a protocol department that deals with matters of security and matters of terrorism, and it would have been easier for you to avoid what you've just gone through if you had followed that procedure. But I also understand that being in this country for long, you easily become contextualized in your operations and you start doing things the Kenyan way, which is not wrong, but I think it will have been easier, Ambassador, for you to deal with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because I think they have more protocol in terms of how to deal with you than members from the Ministry of Interior. But yes, we know the case. I know they have been waiting for the last 2 years after the appeal. And probably my understanding is people feel as a country you've been putting a lot of emphasis on these two. And probably that's why there's suspicion that they are not necessarily retired people. There could be some elements within the system, and we know it. You can be an intelligence officer, but when you go out, you call yourself retired or something like that. So my wish is that I wish you did not go that route. It will have been easier so that we'll be talking different things. Mine was just a comment.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So you can actually answer the question by Dr. Hassan Khanenje. Then we'll actually wind up unless you have one more question. Very briefly. Yeah.
You know that, as I said, as giving consulate service to all Iranian outside the country, including prisoners, we, as embassy, we are not legal expert to go to the file. Whenever I discuss this issue and some other issues with the Kenyan official and request for some facilitation, I never go to the legal point of view. I never discussed about it because I'm not legal expert. I'm not Kenya legal expert. I don't have big information about legal procedure, law in Kenya, all these things. I will not go that. The things that we are doing, just if prisoners need some services, we ask the officials to provide that services, and even they do not, we said we are ready to buy for some facility for them if they don't have clothes, if they require special food, and if they require special medication or all these things. We have a system that the family will deposit in our account in Iran, account of the embassy, and here we pay for all their expenses. We do that kind of services. We do not go to the bottom of the profile. But because the Revolutionary Guard and Quds forces are part of Iranian army, I should say that these two people, clearly they are not from that. You can't find 1 day of their life that they have served in this. Actually, the Quds Nehru or force mainly operating in Iraq and Syria. And it was that force that defeated terrorism in Syria and in Iraq. And it is 100% a force that today serves the international community to fight in terrorism.
All right, one more.
As this war wind down in Syria, what do you expect the future of your relationship with Israel and also with Saudi Arabia?
If you look at the history of our relation with Saudi Arabia, especially in these days, you will find out every time Iranian politician says that we have to resolve our differences and dispute through the peaceful and negotiation with Saudi Arabia. And all the time the Saudi Arabia refuses and says that Iran has to go out from Syria, go out from Iraq, or some others than we discuss. Actually, the terrorism in Syria and Iraq mainly created by Saudi Arabia and some other countries. Ideologically, these people are from Wahhabism. Financially, they have been given a lot of money. Then it's very difficult, and it's not acceptable for international community that Iran leave Syria and Iraq, abandon the Iraq and Syria for this extremism. It's not Syria and Iraq. If they finish with Syria and Iraq, the next step would be Egypt. The next step would be Jordan.
Thank you. All right, just one more question from Erastus, and I think also you can weigh in on the Kenyan tea market. Clearly, you're enjoying our tea, right? Very nice tea this morning, Ambassador. But what does it portend right now with the sanction also of the U.S., as we hear also from Erastus Mwamba?
Okay. The Foreign Minister, Sarif, has given indication he wants to resign. Well, his resignation has not been accepted. Can you comment, what is the future of this P5+1 agreement? Because you have extremists who are pushing the minister out, and yet Iran gives an indication that they want that nuclear deal to be respected. Are you not playing into the U.S. hands by doing what you are doing? And now if you look at trade between Iran and Kenya, Kenya actually buys more from Iran than Kenya exports to Iran. What is this spat about tea then?
Yes, Iran, like any other democratic country like Kenya, there is a government establishment, there is opposition establishment. And the opposition all the time do something in order to put pressure on the government, to indicate to the people that the performance of the government is not good, and because the next time when that election is held, they want to do everything to get the vote of the people. The issue of resigning of Minister Zarif was mismanagement in the meeting of Bashar al-Assad with our supreme leader, which our minister was not duly informed and on time to be at the meeting. It was a, how should say, internal protest by Minister of Interior to say that the rule of Minister of Foreign Affairs Study, to say the rule and indignity of Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to be taken account in every political move. With regard to our tea business with Kenya, there is no any problem of doing tea business in Kenya. Even the United States that put heavy sanction on Iran, which is not legal. It's against the United Nations resolution, which passed even by Security Council. Even it was voted for by the United States during Obama administration. And even in that heavy sanction, the food and agricultural and medicine item have been excluded, and therefore I don't see any pressure from the outside for the tea, especially for the tea exportation. And the tea market in Iran is a very big and huge. We are consuming 185,000 metric tons of tea annually, which is more than 70% of the total tea production in Kenya. And then the share of Kenya in our market is only 5,000 metric tons. And Sri Lanka and India have 180,000 metric tons of our market. Therefore, with the quality of tea in Kenya, there is not a big expectation that we can at least have 30% of Iranian market in the short term. And it's not only Iranian market, because we are on the transit way from Persian Gulf to Central Asia and Caucasus area. That market also be open for Kenya. It depends on some requirement, especially promotion of Kenya tea in Iranian public.
Right, thank you. I think we've exhausted it. Yeah, we want to also to discuss other issues as well. Okay. Your Excellency, we really appreciate you coming through this morning. And of course, you should continue buying our tea as well. And we hope this matters, even as it escalates to the Supreme Court, also will get a clear, way path on how it will pan out as far as the two prisoners are concerned.
Exactly. We from the beginning, we step by step, we followed the rule of law in Kenya. We believe in that. We believe in justice and rule of law in Kenya. We are sure that whatever Supreme Court rules, it's based on rule of law. We respect that, and we continue promoting our good relation with Kenya. I would like you to give me 1 minute to say that recently we proposed to establish master degree education on nanotechnology in Jomo Kenyatta University. We pledged that we send our professors, lecturers to have that course. We pledged that give a full-scale equipment of a nano laboratory for Kenya, and that one will be Kenya will be the first country in Africa, even in Africa, that will have postgraduate nanotechnology courses. We are number 4 in the world with regard to nanotechnology, number 4, and therefore we want to promote our relation with Kenya. We want to have a good relation. We want to support Kenya in its endeavor to develop without any expectation up and down. And this file of 2 prisoners is another issue. Having good relation with Kenya is very important for us. And although maybe some third party sometimes put some obstacle in that, but we as Iran determined to have a very good relation with Kenya.
Thank you. And we appreciate the good cordial relations that we do have so far. We look forward to cementing this more and more, of course, with many activities that Kenya and Iran will be, of course, embroiled and involved in. We want to thank you so much also for appearing on our show this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, you can actually continue with your tea as we continue also with the conversation here. We want to now look at other stories as well. Today also is a big day for the US and the North Korea Hanoi summit, which will be happening late in the day. The two presidents, that is President Donald Trump and President Kim Jong-un of North Korea, have arrived in the Vietnamese capital, that is Hanoi, for this second summit. We want to just get to hear from our panelists, what do they expect from this very crucial second summit as far as the nuclearization is concerned? What does it portend also for the entire world as far as security is concerned? Are they changing tone as far as the denuclearization is concerned as well? Let's just begin with Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, briefly.
Well, Debarl, there was precious little in terms of content of what was discussed in the first meeting that took place in Singapore. And it was more of a photo opportunity, and giving, actually, the beneficiary of that outcome was North Korea. And since then, the president of South Korea is accepted in the international community as an interlocutor in this matter. But beyond that, you see, North Korea has continued to pursue its policy unabated. And that is because U.S. Is in a very awkward situation, because President Trump wanted to give an indication that he has brokered a peace. He thrashed what had been done by his predecessors, and now he wants, as usual, create a crisis and find a solution so that it looks like he has come up with something significant. To say the least, I really don't expect much from there, because you don't even see preparations that have been made to say the draft agreement does give these indications, because the ultimate, of course, objective is to limit North Korea's capacity to develop delivery and enrichment of uranium, so that they are not able to have war arsenals that can destroy the region but also reach United States. I am not sure that is going to be on the cards.
Right, you don't hear them?
I don't actually have a major comment on here. I'm sure there may be others that would like to say something.
You know, I think Donald Trump has always wanted to show that he's better than any other president in the U.S. history in everything, including foreign policy. And when it comes to substance, both the previous meeting and what is going to be discussed even in this meeting, there is very little that is going to come out. Nothing, no progress will ever be made on that path with North Korea, which has been very successful in being rehabilitated technically, you know, to become a normal state in the international community. if, for instance, the U.S. is not willing to move its troops out of South Korea. You know, it's just as simple as that. Now, as long as North Korea thinks they still a threat from Washington, they're not going to denuclearize. Now, is Washington ready to move 30,000 troops from the border of North Korea? The answer right now is actually no. And it's a lot because of the, the shift towards Asia that, the Obama doctrine started, and just the geopolitics of the world around there. It is not likely that it's going to happen soon. If it does, I will be surprised. But, part of also the problem is, Trump is running his own race, but then here you have the Congress and the Senate. That it's not exactly enthusiastic, and right now, the House is not exactly in support of Donald Trump. And there are a lot of things that he won't be able to achieve ultimately, actually, without the support of the House and the American people. Number two, negotiations such as this ones take a long time. Chances are Trump has 2 more years in White House. Now, will this really last? And of course, North Korea knows that this guy might not really be around for a long time, but we can buy enough time and extract enough concessions. Number 3, the U.S. has not still opened up the pockets of money to Pyongyang. The sanctions are still in place largely. So what progress are we talking about? This, for me, is just another opportunity for photo-op and for Donald Trump and his bromance with Kim Jong-un to be seen that they are doing something, but I don't really see anything substantive coming out of this. I will be extremely surprised. But with regard to, if things don't break down and they're still just able to talk, it's actually a success for both Kim and Donald Trump, especially to his base politically. It is not for the United States, it's not even for the world.
All right, so you hold with this view, you agree that this is all about style and no substance? Another photo op and a bromance, cemented between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump?
I think mine is speculation. One, we don't know what Trump can do. We know he surprises people. But there are 2 things I think he could surprise the world with. First, he stopped exercises in South Korea without even discussing with the president of South Korea. That is Donald Trump. There are 2 things North Korea has been asking for. Declaration to the end of the war, which Trump, the way we know him these days, can quickly do it in Hanoi. And that means moving troops from the demilitarized zone back to the bases. And number 2, Trump can actually start opening some taps for North Korea, because this man, the psychology that you see in Donald Trump, is a man who believes in himself, myself, I, and me. So anything that he'll wish to do to give credibility to his name, this man has the capacity to do that. So my speculation is we could just hear something very strange coming out of Hanoi for purposes of uplifting. And I'm looking at those 2 things. And declaration to the end of the war, which North Korea has been asking for a long time. And therefore, when you declare that the war has ended, it opens up many other doors for North Korea in terms of foreign direct investment and everything. And probably starting to put in some funds, slowly edging out the restrictions in terms of trade. Because we know before this guy went to Hanoi, he had gone to China. He had talked to Putin. And therefore, whatever Hanoi is taking to her, whatever North Korea is taking to Hanoi could be a regional thing. Okay? And it's likely that Trump, because of his ego and whatever, could just make up a statement that could shock the world. That is my speculation.
All right, let's hear from Professor Nomi Damba.
Debarl, I agree with 2 of my colleagues, except my departure is a little slightly in that Trump is not fighting or a conflict with North Korea. This conflict is much more complex than Trump himself understands. Trump has a conflict with China and also with Russia. North Korea still have a stockpile of nuclear warhead. The original focus was to complete verifiable denuclearization of North Korea. It's not going to happen. And then I agree with my colleagues. Trump is unpredictable. He's going to make statements which are not supported by facts or by people who have spent years working on this situation. And therefore, it will be a short term, not a long term kind of thing. So it's more a photo op.
It's more of a photo op. Okay. Also, let's see what is happening in Nigeria so far. Supporters of Nigeria, as we saw earlier, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari celebrated at his party headquarters in Abuja after tallies showed he won a second term at the helm of Africa's largest economy and top oil producer. A tally by Reuters based on Electoral Commission results showed Buhari of All Progressive Congress Party had won by 56% compared with 41% for other candidates, a businessman and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party. But also, as we're commenting on this, the most consternating is the turnout by the youth. Nigeria's youth becomes the rising power in presidential polls. They came out in force on this. Let's hear from Irungu Hilton. This was just cast in stone. Earlier on, we said that there was a low voter turnout. That was Kanenja saying. So that was actually predisposing Buhari to actually win this election. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the win by, I think it's about 4 million voters, in a sense will, I mean, in the absence of any controversy that's raised by independent election observers, I think will probably seal the election for Nigeria. I mean, I think the bigger challenge that young people in Nigeria probably are thinking about right now is you've got a situation where the economy is dipping. It's generally not growing fast enough to deal with these young, very, kind of restless and also very eager to contribute to nation building, these young people. And you've got corruption that is beginning to find its way closer and closer to Buhari. There's no evidence that Buhari himself has benefited, but definitely many of the people around him. And maybe this will be his opportunity to clear the cabinet. And by the way, just to mention domestically, I think also there is an issue about cabinet renewal. And I think at the moment, trending at the moment is something, sack these CSs, even here in Kenya. But maybe for Buhari, this is the opportunity for him to clean up. And the third challenge, I think, for Nigeria at the moment is the security question, particularly in the northern part of the country. And we saw in Maiduguri, even over the last week or so, a number of attacks. So I think for what Nigerians, for the incoming president, he's got a new term. But I think the question will be whether he's able to generate a new level of vigor that does not leave him being quoted as Baba Goslo. That's I'm told by Nigerians, that's what they call him, Baba Goslo.
Baba Goslo.
There's vigor that's needed in the second term. Let's hope he finds it.
I like it. Baba Goslo, or on the other hand, let's hear.
Okay, let me start from this. Africa is Africa. I am a member of a forum called the African Security Forum. And majority of the members on this forum are Nigerians, Ghanaians, and Cameroonians. I think one thing that you read from these discussions and arguments and hate speech is that in Nigeria we still have serious problems of religion. And most of the things you read about Nigeria, the Fulani, the Hausas, the Igbos, is purely tribal. And I think it is so in-depth that if Buhari has to work on this, because I could read even some of the things talking about Christianity, if this man gets back, then we Christians are finished. And you see, these are people who live in the diaspora. These are Nigerians who are exposed. But there's serious tribal hatred in Nigeria that I think one of the things Buhari should do, hopefully, within the 5 years, because he has tried to tame corruption, but he's not been able to do it. I think he needs to work on religion and tribalism in Nigeria. And once he does that in the next 5 years, I think he'll come out, as we call him Baba Goslo, but I just let him deal with those things so that by the time he leaves in the next 5 years, at least Nigeria will be in a better place as a stable, emerging country in terms of political stability. Because what we see from outside, you think Nigeria is very stable. But what you hear from the people from inside Nigeria, Nigerians themselves, There are serious issues on tribalism and religion, religious differences. And once he deals with those two, I think, even as he fights corruption, he could leave the country a better place than when he found it.
All right. Let's go to...
Just a comment on that.
Just a comment on it? Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to agree with my colleagues what they have said. But there are two indicators here of what is happening in Nigeria. You raised a question about the youth. First of all, the low turnout is itself an indication that the population was perhaps not fired up in terms of choice, because when they looked at Atiku was vice president to Obasanjo, and it is alleged that he wasn't very clean, and so people perhaps looked at it and they said, well, the devil we know then is better than, because in any case, even with all this corruption mentioned, it hasn't really touched on the president. The only thing that has been talked about the president is this goes slow is because of his health.
Yes.
And so the question then is, going forward, is he going to be able to garner enough energy, particularly in his second term, and lift the Nigerian economy? Because Nigerian economy, it is the powerhouse for Africa. Nigerian economy is the biggest. South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, and all that. If these economies don't do well, Africa doesn't do well. And I think it is sad that to see somebody with low energy, the country with low spirit in the second term. Let's hope something happens and we see a check-up, because otherwise we are in for a very slow turn of events.
Nigeria just surpassed India to have the largest concentration of poor people on earth. It is the largest economy in Africa and the largest number of poor people. And the head of state is going to be a go-slow person. I'm not sure what the result is.
I'm just thinking what that pertains to the future. You know, you have, and it's not bad, but I think what appears to be two geriatrics, you know, running for president. One of them, a former military ruler who spent most of his first time in the hospital bed than actually in the office. And then you have the other one who was so tainted in the first term that for a long time Obasanjo actually had disowned him until last minute.
Correct.
Yeah, and so you have options who are not exactly perhaps inspiring to a lot of young people. And what does that mean now for younger Nigerians? But there's also something else, and you did mention about those differences. Of course, a lot of them are historical, and they go back. And we were discussing 2 weeks ago when I said I think Buhari will be winning, and not because he was going to steal the election. It's because actually of the ethnic and religious makeup of Nigeria and how they vote. And just based on that, you could actually make a prediction on who was likely going to win. What some Kenyans say, the tyranny of numbers. Yeah, and it was very apparent. So I think you have a lot of young Nigerians who are so disillusioned with the direction of the country that they're unable to get leadership that is active, because Jonathan Goodluck brought a lot of bad luck actually to the country, because the country was very corrupt, and he was a much younger man. So let's hope perhaps we are going to have new progressives among those who've been elected, because there are a lot of young people who've been elected in office in this cycle.
All right. Let's also come back home and just discuss a bit of things that needs to come to the highlight, especially in regarding to licensing of guns. We've seen a very high-tech, military caliber, guns or weapons with civilians. Maybe you can comment on this, Dr. Werunga. And also, I know today is 1 year since Meru student leader Evans Njoroge was killed by a police officer, and we want to know what has been the progress so far. Irungi Houghton, you can actually handle that very briefly as we prepare our headline thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing what the minister is doing, but I also believe in having systems in place. People can surrender, but you must also put in systems that will ensure that those who don't surrender are forced to give up. So Matiang'i has very good ideas. Even in the Matatu, he came out, ran around the show, he went quiet. If you drive on Kenyan roads, the Matatus are back to the same. So my wish for Minister Matiang'i is C.S. Matiang'i is that even as he does these good things for the country, let him work on the systems that will sustain what he wants to be achieved. Because if you make it a photo op, like we say, and then after that, there are no systems to ensure that you sustain what you want the country to have, then it will be bad for this country. How a person in this country can have a rifle as a personal weapon, I cannot understand.
High caliber fire weapon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Nobody is allowed to have a rifle as a personal weapon.
It's a corruption now.
That is serious corruption. And even as he deals with these people who are surrendering, those behind that should be held to account. Because that's the only way you can hold these people to account to ensure that this country does not lapse into that again. There are people who should fake licenses, they're still with us. There are people who should fake letters to these people to own arms, they're still with us. There are people who allow these fellows to bring in these rifles, yet the country does not allow an individual to own a rifle in this country. So who are these people who are allowed to bring in the rifles for the Kenyan person to buy? You see, those are the things we need to be looking at. So that even as we deal with this issue of licensing of people, the chipping and the personal data and whatever will not make sense, Debarl, until the minister puts in systems. Sacking the board and bringing in new people is just one of the things he should do. But I think my wish for Dr. Matiang'i is that whatever thing he touches, let him put in systems that even when he's not around, the systems are taking care of all those problems.
Thank you. And of course, that we can discuss much later deeply in other programs on Wednesdays as well, as far as, gun control in this country is concerned. Let's just hear from Irungu Houghton with the story of the university students. So far, this is 1 full year. Nothing has come to the fore as well. This is Evans Njoroge.
It's actually one year to the day almost that Meru University's Secretary General, student Evans Njoroge was shot in a maize farm in Meru, and he was pursued by an officer. The officer has now been arrested. He's been prosecuted for the case and is currently facing criminal charges in the Meru court. And I think for many of his family and the Kenyans who have been really concerned about the spike in unlawful police killings and also extrajudicial executions by officers, it's a moment really to just reflect on the broader question of our security sector reform. And what we've seen in the last few months is really some progress, I think, in terms of high-level statements. I think the minister, the interior minister, the office, the director of public prosecutions, and also the director of criminal investigation have all in the last 1 month said that they will not spare any officer that uses their weapon in a reckless manner or unlawfully kills a Kenyan. And I think that message needs to be heard across not just all the police officers, but really across the country. I think the other three things that we need to focus a little bit more on is really increasing capacities around human rights training for our police officers. We need to also think about active crime, I guess, which is crime scene management, so that prosecution of criminals is done in a manner in which it gives confidence in the system. And then I think the second thing is really thinking about how the judiciary can basically have continuous case hearings so that these cases don't take very long. At the moment, the 10 police officers that have been convicted in the last, I think, 1 month have all had cases that have taken between 3 years to 5 years to conclude. And I think that is just too long for justice to happen. Very lastly, I think for many of us, we're beginning to look at the National Coroner Service Act as a place where we need to put some implementation thinking. And the Attorney General needs to put in some resources to do that. But just lastly, with the risk of looking like I'm advertising an event, I think one of an important issue that's happening, an event that's happening this week, is really a hearing that's been organized between the Director of Public Prosecutions and the community of Kayole. And that's taking place tomorrow between 9 and 1 o'clock in Kayole. And the information is available on social media for people who are interested.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. And as you're winding up also, let me just read 1 or 2 tweets here. We have Mohammed Ahmed saying, Kenya should be talking about the state of corruption and poor youth empowerment in Kenya before dipping your noses in other countries. I think we've had a bellyful of this every day, right? We should not be just being level gazing and talking about corruption every day. Kenyans, this is just becoming numbingly now boring, and people are getting tired. There can be a view of fatigue on that as well. Also, Aremo Odera is saying, why so much? Still the same thought, concerned with other nations. When ours we cannot do anything, when we cannot do anything about it. We have Jacob Abere Mtalala saying, I'm impressed by Ambassador Hadi executing his points on his diplomatic duty and being face of Tehran in Nairobi. No matter how your country looks on face of international community. Alex Chirchir, Ambassador Faraj, story not adding up. CCTV cams available everywhere nowadays. You mean Iranian embassy has none? Wherever they met has none too. Why bypass foreign affairs? And lastly, the Kush as well. Is it in order to turn the show into an interrogation room? If so, please interrogate our very own diplomats who have been advancedly named in various issues as well. And Gadoni, lastly, wasn't he caught on CCTV buying the tickets, yet he knew they were criminals? Why was he doing this? This fellow is guilty, but unfortunately, as the diplomatic community, those are reactions on social media. We want to thank our panelists this morning for this cogent discussion we've had, after the issues we've discussed this morning, and also for your valued company and reactions on social media. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and Living with Us is up next.